Welcome to Out of Office, Navigating Identity in the Professional Spaces. Hello everyone, I'm Yiting Liu. I'm a creative technologist and founder exploring how technology can create deeper human connection. I'm honored to be moderating today's conversation with Jess and Demetrius. Rather than spending time reading bios, we're going to jump right into the conversation so we can spend more time hearing directly from our panelists. Please join me in welcoming Jess and Demetrius. Perfect. Before we begin, I'd like to share something personal. As a Chinese founder working in technology and creative industries, I've often wondered how much of myself belonged in the professional spaces. Over time, I've realized that the things that I thought made me different became the things that made my work more meaningful because the perspective is different from the rest. And I imagine many of us have moments like that. So I'd like to begin there. So Demetrius, you work in storytelling, media, and data-driven environments. Is there a version of yourself that you've never seen represented in your industry?
Yes, that's an interesting question. You know, I believe that you have, just working in like media entertainment is very, very fast-paced. And I feel like over time, it's important to like learn different strategies and to sort of find out like what you're good at. And I feel like over time, like I have used like my strength to really be able to push me to the ultimate limits. And you know, I had like a conversation with someone recently, and we talked a lot about like how to represent your true identity. But I just realized if you show up and you feel good about yourself, that's a great way to like navigate through like a challenging moment or like something that you may be interested in, but you may not even have the experience or expertise in. But yes, that's a really awesome question, and I think the best way to go about that is to definitely believe in yourself, and it's okay to kind of like want better, and it's okay to say, oh, like this is me today, but you know I want to try to do this. And I think that we have to be very vocal about what we want, because ultimately that's how you find success.
Very cool. Very cool. What about you, Jess? Is there a version of yourself that you've never seen represented in your industry?
Oh. So I've been a working artist for over 30 years, so there's been a lot of versions of everything, you know. Certainly when I was working in music in Australia in the 90s, it was prohibitively difficult to be openly queer. And I lost a lot of opportunities when I did come out. Had some record deals disappear, and basically my career ended, so that was a good time. So I left Australia. So all that to say, like, I think because, you know, times have moved and shifted, I've gotten to see the versions in which I couldn't entirely be myself and where folks around me couldn't entirely be themselves, especially in the entertainment industry. And then, you know, as time moves, you get to see these really brave people showing up and giving permission to others. And then, you know, young people changing the way that everything is done. I feel really privileged to have had so much experience witnessing all these different ways that things have happened, and I think it just makes me feel really optimistic. And also, you know, I work in the creative industry, so I get access to a lot of different, you know, types of people and experiences. So I think an answer to your question is no. I've seen a lot, and there's there are a lot of good people being brave in a lot of different sectors. Yeah.
Being brave is a key, I think, to not only stand up for yourself, but also show your authentic self in not only the industry, but also in your life. So my question is, how has, all the people that you've seen that are inspiring you changed the way that you lead and show up today? And this is the question for both of you. So the question is, how has, all the inspirational people that you've seen or getting represented in your industry shaped the way that you show up and lead today?
Yes, I would say a benefit for me, I have been fortunate to travel a lot and work in many different spaces. And I had a lot of people that believed in me and my abilities. And so just studying abroad in the UK and then living in the UAE, the Middle East, where I'm completely different than anybody else that I see. I think that's a journey, especially a cultural journey. And I feel like you're not going to connect with everybody. And I feel like it is important to really focus in on those people who you can relate with and that you can trust and that you can build a relationship with. That's what really helped me over time. And I've been really fortunate that I have been around some great people. Even though we may have some different beliefs, but we may have certain passion, we may have similar passions, which is great. So I feel like just traveling and just meeting so many people have helped me a lot. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. I love seeing different cultures. I love seeing different places. And even in the workspace, working with media and whatnot, it's changing rapidly. So I feel like you have to be adaptable in that space because you walk in and we have a new software or we have to do training on a different platform. And so it's big. I try to be open-minded a lot of things and keep pushing forward. But to answer your question, I just think that it's great to have people that believe in you and your talents. And it's important to also build those relationships. And then I feel like ultimately just being genuine over time will help you succeed in that market.
So much.
I think for me, there's been, acts of courage, in the face of all kinds of obstacles, has always been something that compels me to be more courageous. And so especially, witnessing anyone, it doesn't have to be somebody that has any kind of standing in any sort of situation, but just seeing people stand up for things that they believe in, I think that in itself emboldens me. But also sometimes being in spaces where you feel like there isn't representation of something that you could contribute, the absence of something that is a good example, I think has also been something that has compelled me to get bigger in those spaces in ways that scare me. So,
how do you know, when's the time, where you feel in your body that's it's time to act outside of your comfort zone? And
that's a really good question. I don't know how to know that. I'm also a voice coach and I teach people how to show up in spaces and, from CEOs to folks that are just, wanting to expand into their self-expression. I think when I think about examples of times where it's kind of I've stepped out onto a ledge, figuratively speaking. I don't do that often on purpose. I think it's not a choice. It's not a cognitive choice. I think it's been a compulsion more than other things, or just I think also getting angry helps. Getting frustrated helps. Like having that kind of fire, I think, is helpful. Paying attention to shit not being right, I think is like at a certain point, that's how I'm built anyway. If I see there's a gap, like to me, I feel like, we've got to show up for other people.
And thank you so much for showing up today.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Yeah, that's half the battle.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
And thank you so much for showing up today too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have another question for you, Jess. Was there any moment, because you've, had so many different facets of career and industry you've explored, was there a moment where you consciously decided you were done performing for other people's comfort?
How to make this succinct? Yes. No. Yes. So like I said, I was, I started working in the music industry in Australia when I was 14, and so that was 1994. And Australia took a little bit longer to not be as backward. It's still working on it. But at the time, it was pretty clear by how the rest of the industry was being treated that I couldn't talk about it. And that was normal. Feminism wasn't really even a word that we spoke about in amongst ourselves. A lot of the female people that I was spending time with in the music industry didn't believe in the inequities that were happening. So it was in the water. And I think just from seeing that there was a lack of representation, I got to a certain point where I couldn't hide it anymore. It just felt really unnatural, and the deeper I got into my artistic practice, the more it felt inauthentic to just continue pretending that I was mainstream, or whatever the thing was that I thought was going to generate success, because if you show up this way, then, you can't be this thing and whatever, and I did get proof of that. But I came out in this article in Curve magazine. It was like this 4-page spread, and it was amazing. Because all the people around me who were also queer and working and getting a lot of recognition refused to admit it. And that pissed me off. So it wasn't a conscious choice so much, again, as a compulsion, because I felt that without, over time, when you work in the creative industries especially, but also just like witnessing people, we don't learn by being told. We don't change our mind by being told. We learn by example. And just knowing that, I couldn't pretend anymore. And it was devastating to my career. But now that the world has changed a little, and I've gotten older, I'm so, so, so grateful to be able to live as myself. And I think as a teacher especially, but also just a performing artist, I get to provide that representation, and I get that affirmation that people are grateful for my courage. And it's worth it. But yeah, it wasn't a moment, it wasn't a definitive moment, it was more of like a kind of just the way that sort of inertia happens when you spend enough time doing something and that requires authenticity. Yeah.
Wow. It's awesome.
Yes, I just wanted to add on to that, because I agree, and I think like over time, like my attitude have really shifted to a different point of view, where I feel like I used to walk into a room and think in my head like, oh, like is everyone here, are they gonna like me? Are they gonna accept me for who I am? But now I feel like over time, like with my success, I feel like I walk into the room and now I don't really care. In my head, I'm thinking like, do this person even deserve my time? That's what I'm thinking about in my head. I'm not looking for acceptance. And I feel good about that. I feel great about that, because ultimately, this is your life, and I feel like you have to like think in your head like what you want and how you want to be accepted and how you want to be appreciated. And that's with all points in life. That's in the workforce, that could be also with friends, that can be with family. So I feel like at some point we have to stop looking for that acceptance and we have to start looking for what we want and inside. And I feel like that's how you create happiness, and how when I look in the mirror, I feel good about myself.
Yes.
I feel good about myself. So that to me is success, and I feel like it helps me to open up to other people and like listen to ideas and go from there. So I definitely agree with that a lot, with that statement.
It sounds to me like you're describing like this idea of, because you've found acceptance within yourself, that it's not about reaching outside of yourself to move to the next step. It's like, this is who I am. This is what you're going to get, and it's awesome. Yeah. Sick.
Yeah, I really appreciate how Jess was talking about, the act of being courageous and also being authentic throughout the years. You're just like, the rage was just being built up and be like, nah, not gonna deal with this. And, I feel so honored to share the stage with you guys, because a lot of things have been, you guys basically manifested the version of yourself that you want to lead in your life. Let's just assume we have current life. Maybe you have several lives, who knows? Right, your current life. And it feels so inspiring to know that you are finding acceptance in yourself, and you get to choose who you surround yourself with, the people and friends. I feel very honored, and I do have follow-up questions. What surprised you most after making that decision? Be like, I accept myself. I don't want to seek any validation from outside. And, what shift? What did you feel differently afterwards?
I would say every day, navigating through certain spaces, even when it comes to like working with different people or working with different companies or applying at different companies and interviewing with different companies and asking the right questions to make sure that you are a good fit and that your values is going to align and they're going to accept you like for who you are. So I've been fortunate when it comes to companies that appreciate me and other people with differences. Like I think SiriusXM do a really great job at that. I think out of all the companies I work for, I would say that they really appreciate diversity, and they really take account on just representing every group. And it's very few companies, I think, from what I'm hearing from other friends that is doing that now, because I feel like that have changed in a way where everyone may not be appreciated as much. And so I just realized that going throughout life, as far as like working on a startup and like my fitness journey and different things like that, I feel like that's definitely keeping me focused and more grounded, just appreciating and having more time working towards things that I'm passionate about. And I realized that I also have more time to help other people and other creatives that want to build and want to create something special. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to to that journey.
So thank you so much.
I just want to what's it called? Parrot what you just said about like helping other people. I think that was kind of the initial shift of like having that realization, I guess, from what I was describing before. Like the thing that happened directly after that is it took a long time to recover and actually feel like it was worth trying anymore. But if I bring it closer into this period of my life, like I said, I work as a voice coach and a creativity coach, and I lead workshops and things like that. And in the last couple of years of like refining the branding of what I'm doing, it was a huge hurdle to actually admit that like kind of the style of what I do. You know, I teach this thing, and you're going to recognise that it's the thing that I teach, and you know, and when I kind of let go of that and allowed it to be, no, actually, this is who I am in the room. This is what I'm interested in. This is who you're going to get when I'm not trying. I started to attract all the people that wanted to find me, and so my business became a lot more authentic, and the things that I was doing and the conversations I was having became a lot more natural and based in a place that is more easily, has more ease and creates more expansion. So I think that that's the biggest thing that I've learned over time is the more myself I become, as much as it makes me nervous sometimes, the more people feel safe to be themselves around me. And so, like I said, you know, we lead by example, not by telling people how to be different. So to be able to show people that you can be safe moving through the world in your most authentic form gives people permission to do the same. And that's the thing that's deepened since I've been making those choices.
That's so healing to hear. Wow. Thank you for setting the example, because just by talking to you, I feel that there are certain things that I want to improve of myself, but sometimes maybe the self-critic is a little too loud.
I think for a lot of us, yeah. I mean, it's been imposed on us by capitalism, so. What's that?
So, I'm going to open up to both of you for a group discussion. Have you ever benefited from being underestimated?
No, but yes. I don't know. I think the benefit of being underestimated is you get to learn a lot about the person that's underestimating you pretty quickly. Because generally speaking, you know, once you actually prove that you can do the thing that you said you can do, then things usually move along as if they never underestimated you. But I think, yeah, getting a sense of who it is that you're working with and what they're ready to, and how open-minded they are towards the possibility of things being different than they expect. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned from that.
I would say, as far as like benefiting, I would say that's probably not the case, but I do realize that like people will like doubt you in a lot of things that you do. And I think when you have like big dreams, coming from like a small town, I feel like I always had big dreams. So they have fear because it's too much for them. It's too much for their mindset. And as you know, it's only two different types of mindsets. It's open and fixed. That's it. And I feel like my mindset was always different than my peers that I grew up with. But I'm glad because I did things that they would never do. So I feel like, yes, I proved them wrong every time. I just remembered when I was like telling some of my family, oh, like I'm like moving to the Middle East. They were like, oh, what? Like, why? Like you can't like, you know, have fun. You can't be yourself. You can't drink. You can't be gay. None of that was true. Like when I got there, like I had a great time. I found my friend group. I found like people that love me. And I had such a great time traveling throughout Asia, going to Vietnam and going to Thailand, going to Madagascar. So even like wherever you go, you're gonna find your family, and then you're gonna have people that accept you. You're gonna have people that don't. But there's always gonna be people that doubt you, and then that conversation will become like, oh. I don't believe in you, but oh, can you help me do this? Or it shifts where as though they look at you like, oh, you did this, like you proved me wrong, but how can you help me? But yeah, so I mean, I look at it that way. But yeah, I think that's the way the world works in a way, for sure.
Am I correct to, like, so what you were saying is basically you show them by what you did to, like, for them whoever underestimated you, they would see potentially in a different light that, oh, he's pretty good at what he does. So in that sense, are you saying that professional speaking, there's like your craftsmanship and the skills have to be very top tier despite of your identity? Like how do you navigate that part?
Ultimately, I look to inspire others. So I'm not really paying much attention to people who have doubts about my abilities, because I know what my abilities are and I know what I can bring to the table. So from a professional standpoint, I'm looking at like, okay, I'm doing all these amazing things, and I want to be able to maybe help my cousins or like help other people who maybe don't really have opportunities. So I'm focusing on that more, and I feel like that's what was driving me and motivating me more. So I do think that like people who will doubt you usually do become inspired. So, but ultimately I'm focusing on that aspect more so of like anything else, I would say.
Right. The big dream and the vision.
Yes.
Yeah, and the mission is to gather around all the people, turn whoever who doubts you. Turn whoever doubts you to be.
Good morning.
Hi. Good. How are you? So we have our another speaker here, Tyranny. Would you mind? So we are currently jumping into the group discussion, and then we straight up jumped, escape. Like we didn't talk about bios at all. So right now we were just talking about, have you ever benefited from being underrested? If you'd like to contribute.
Well, first of all, thank you all for having me, and pardon my tardiness as well. Had some family issues happening. You said, have I ever benefited from what?
Being underestimated.
All the time. I believe that being underestimated is the best position to move from. A lot of times when you're the target, well, when you're the face or when you're being seen, you become the target. But when you're underestimated, you're able to move into spaces that people don't necessarily think that you may belong in, and they underestimate your ability. So when you get into the space, you're able to shine on a level that they didn't expect.
I love that. It's like sneaking and be like, Bowser. Is there anything that you've learned from a community that isn't your own that changed how you move through in professional spaces?
Of me? Oh, from a community that's not my own? Yes. So I learned, it plays off of the last answer I just gave. I learned that you don't necessarily have to be the face to be the power. And so I watched other groups, and they were more interested in like the infrastructure and the way that things operated, and actually having the real power, like getting into the political spaces and where things actually move. I learned that from watching other groups and tried to implement it into my own life and the way I approach my professional career.
Of a fast learner and always thinking about the framework.
I'm trying.
Yes, so when it comes to, just agreeing with you, when it comes to just working in different groups that may be different or have different ideas, whether that be like political or whether that be like through culture, I feel like you can always relate to someone in some way, and you'll be surprised like how much in common you actually have with someone that may be in a different space or that you would never think you would even hang out with. And it's interesting because like just being able to attend like a lot of networking events and a lot of different functions, I try to talk to as many people as I can, even if they have different ideas than me, because I realize that you can learn so much more from someone who is different than you, and that may have different interests that you'll be surprised by. So I actually enjoy talking with people that may have different views than me. I find it to be very beneficial, actually.
Yeah, I all and then I want to mirror that as well, because I just think anyone that's navigating the same similar kind of struggles or anything sort of in a fringe, anyone that's sort of like supposedly on the fringe who has a different perspective or a different way of navigating things, I think it's always beneficial to witness and take part in other people's perspective around navigating similar problems, especially.
Yeah, wow, thank you so much. Another question, what's one piece of professional advice that you've completely stopped following?
That's an interesting question, because over time I've realized that I always had to think I have to work extremely hard to get where I need to be, and I just feel like I like to work smarter now. It makes you feel great, and I enjoy my self-care moments, where I would go to the spa, or I would do something great for myself, even simple things like getting ice cream. That goes a long way, and I feel like people will be surprised by the better you feel. When you show up, people can see that. People can see that, and they can relate to that. So over time, I got out of that mindset of just working extremely hard, but working in a way that benefits me to be able to connect with others, and that's built around my happiness as a person. So I feel good that I'm actively approaching life in that way. So I always tell people, do what you enjoy, then ultimately you're going to be able to find your purpose in life, or any creative moments that you want to take advantage of.
Word.
A piece of professional advice that I've stopped following: I don't wait for permission. I think sometimes we're taught to follow the rules, and if you do this will, the work hard thing. But a lot of times the fastest career growth or the biggest opportunities come when you're not following the rules. It comes when you step out there and do the thing that's brave, that's not in line with everything else. That's usually when you take the leap. And I think if you stay on that, the wheel, if you stay on that wheel, it takes you forever. And you're constantly waiting for someone to let you into the next opportunity. Sometimes you have to push the door open and just go in yourself.
I think since I've been self-employed for most of my life, my own advice, I've changed my mind on a lot of that a lot of the time. But I think the thing that really shifted my perspective from one thing to the next was when I stopped subscribing to this idea that you're supposed to work hard every day, and that you can get up and you can be the same amount of productive every day. The more I've learned about my brain, the more I've come to understand that I work in cycles, or more like a field rather than a straight line. And I think discovering that and listening to more folks who have identified that they think differently than the neurotypical patriarchal bloody capitalistic way of doing things, the more you start to realize that you got to adhere to what works for you. And the more that I've done that, the easier everything has become, including a day where I actually have the freedom to collapse completely has become an essential part of my work week. So I usually take 2 days of the week where one could be a work day, or they could both be full collapse days. And I found that I've become a lot more productive by paying attention to the way that I function rather than trying to fit it into some preconceived notion of being a factory worker. Yeah.
Wow. I'm gonna start following all this advice. Thank you so much. I have one question that I would want to ask for your younger self. So go back to when you were little. Who or what, but who gave you permission to be yourself when you were younger? Were there any moments or any person that showed you that, oh, be free, authentic?
Creative people, artists, anyone that I've come up with, even at school, it was the art teacher, it were the languages teachers, it were the people who have these creative ways of looking at the world, recognized something in me and said, go that way. And then because I went that way, I kept bumping into more and more creative people, and that became the space. Creatives and queers, they tend to open that door for me anyway. Yeah, and as far as speaking to my younger self, it was actually a lot of young people that taught my younger self that it could come out and become, who I am today as well. So I think we've always got that little piece in us that's looking for something to give us permission to be, and it can come in lots of different forms if you pay attention. Yeah.
I would say it would be a mix of people for me. I would say throughout my education, like teachers or even like some of my friends was really supportive and like sort of helping me and navigating different ideas and also learning from each other. I would also say definitely some of my family, I would say my parents, because I feel like they knew what to expect, because they was I told them I want to go to school abroad in the UK, and it was okay, because they knew that I'm the type of person where I'm a go-getter, and I always I have a vision and I'm gonna stick to it. So they try to support me the best that they can, but I do feel over time, it was one of those things where, how long are you gonna live overseas for? Because your family is here in the U.S. and I'm I just wanted to stay overseas for a couple years, but I do feel there is gonna be a lot of people that believe in you, and that's a reason why not to give up and keep going. So, absolutely.
Can you ask that question again? I'm sorry.
Who gave you permission to be yourself when you were younger?
Okay, so it's a two-part answer for me. There's one woman, she was the assistant director at the Boys and Girls Club where I used to go. She was a mass presenting woman. Her name was Kimberly. And I remember watching her because she always, kept her hair done and stuff like that. But she wore if you've ever been to a Boys and Girls Club, it's Nike Air Maxes, basketball shorts, that type of thing, right? But she was in charge, and she was, delegating, because the person who was the main person was an older guy, and so he left everything pretty much to her. So I used to always just sit back and kind of watch her. I watched how she moved. I watched how she conducted meetings. I would just always be paying attention to her. So in my subconscious, I was oh, I can be myself and still be in charge. So but years later you realize that, because I'm oh yeah, I did used to watch her all the time. So that's the first part. As far as teachers and stuff like that, I had kind of a mixed bag with that, because you have some that are prejudiced against you and things of that nature. But one thing I've learned over time is that I'm very good at discriminating against information, taking the meat and leaving the bones. So I would be listening to people. I ear hustle, I guess you would call it. You're listening and paying attention to what's going on around you. And so I was constantly gathering information in different situations. I would see stuff, I'm okay, cool, I need to keep that. And so I was always just I guess building the plane while flying it, because I'm a first generation attorney. So my parents didn't know what to tell me. So I'm always like taking in things, and I would always be listening to people who have already achieved. And I'm like, okay, they said do this, okay, they said don't do that. So I'm just gathering information as fast as possible. So that was kind of what gave me the permission to be who I am.
Wow. So inspiring to hear about all your different perspectives. And I think the main gist from the conversation was mainly about the community you surround yourself with and how you learn and adapt and pick and choose what you like that's calling to you, like authentic to you, and being courageous to step out and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna do this, and whoever feels safe or connected to me, they will come. Thank you so much. Now, time for a debate before we go to audience Q&A. Or maybe not.
Well, we won that one.
We have 4 minutes left, so we are not going to do the debate. We are going to open up to the audience. Anybody have any questions to our panelists? Anything? You can ask anything. You can be like, what's my star sign? What's my, it's a safe space. Perfect. Could you state your name and stand up? Perfect.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I guess the question that I have for y'all is, what is something that you learned in your career that you weren't expecting to, and how has it impacted you moving forward?
Thank you for your question. I think that's, I think it's important, as I mentioned earlier, to be like very adaptable in the workplace. So yeah, I realized that when it comes to even like AI now, like I'm learning a lot about AI in the workplace, and that's definitely affecting everything as far as like how we work today, and like what the future is going to hold. So I think like with some people, they don't know what to expect because the landscaping is changing a lot. So that's something that I have been learning recently, but I think like being like trying to be like adaptable and sort of recreating your workplace to where you can benefit off of that from a point where you're not losing any opportunities is important because that's just the direction that we're moving in, especially when it comes to technology and being in media, especially in the entertainment space. So I think that like maybe 5 years from now, everyone will need to know some form of AI. Absolutely.
Something I learned in my career I wasn't expecting to learn. Ooh, that's a good one. How it's impacted me moving forward. Man. Okay, so I work on a lot of independent projects and things of that nature. So one of the things I learned that I wasn't expecting to was that you're going to pretty much be the builder until it's already built. Then help will arrive. Shout out to all my builders here. Yeah. I didn't realize that. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to put out this good thing and people are going to help me. They will. Once you've already done pretty much the hard part of it, then people will arrive to help. And I don't think it's not a negative knock on people, but you have limited resources, you have limited time, you have your own obligations. And you have to take that into consideration when you're building things. It is important to you, but they have to weigh things of their own as well. So that was the thing I learned.
That's a massive one. Thank you for bringing that up, because that was a shock for me as well. And no one really talks about it. You just kind of rock up. It's like, but come on, it's a great idea. Like, really? Like, actually? And then, yeah. So, yeah, that's a really good one. I think for me, the things that I've learned in my career that I did not expect to When I was 6, I decided I was going to be a superhero. Like, I was really committed to the cause. I was like ready to figure out how to fly, all this stuff. I was ready to ask Father Christmas for superpowers. I was determined. And Mum told me that Father Christmas wasn't real, so I had to figure out a different way. And so I chose music because rock stars were of great influence. I was like, this will be the closest thing. And I think that kind of started a pattern of choosing things that I thought were the thing, were the answer. Like, this will bring me belonging. This will bring me, people will love me if I'm, exceptional in this way, kind of thing. And then in pursuing a music career, which I've been doing for the last 30 years, and the industry collapsing around me, I came to teaching as a side thing because I didn't want to work in pubs anymore. And it's become the central practice of my life. My teaching practice is somewhat of a spiritual practice now, and the way that it has shaped how I interact with the world, the things that I'm building, the things that I'm trying to offer to the world, I never would have guessed, never ever. I wasn't configured in a way that could even consider that when I started. And so I think it's been such a magical experience to pick things that throw me in a certain direction and then figure out what's actually going to be really juicy when I get there, and be open to those things being not what I planned initially, because it was planned by someone who was 6 years old and then 20 years old, and then I didn't update it for a long time. And then I look back, I was like, oh, this doesn't fit. Why did I think this was going to fit? Because I didn't figure it out, And then so I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned, that I don't know where I'm supposed to end up. I know what I'm supposed to feel. I know what I'd like to feel when I get there, but how that puzzle's going to be solved is probably going to be revealed to me. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. We have space for 2 more or 1. Perfect. I'm going to come to you after.
Hi, my name is Julian.
Hey, Julian.
I'm coming from a little undergraduate perspective. I wanted to ask, what do you think were your best first steps in a professional field, or advice, when you're feeling different, you think different? What were your best steps that help you define where you are today in a workspace, in a professional field?
Julian, I don't think I'm the person to ask this question to. The only reason I say that is because I always say my story is a story of grace and favor. So I graduated during not the pandemic, the recession. So, yeah, I graduated in the recession with a business degree. So there was not much I could do with my degree, but I had a love for, I had a fraternity brother who suggested law enforcement. And I went on a ride along with him and liked it, and then I fell into that career, and I was a law enforcement officer for 6.5 years. So my early career was a mixture of circumstances, but then it turned into passion. So if I had to give you a piece of advice for you stepping into your early career, I would say get clear about the end goal and then be open to the path. Because I didn't know that I would eventually found an organization, a nonprofit organization. I didn't know that I would eventually, workforce development with youth and all this other stuff. I didn't know I'd go to law school. I didn't know any of that. But I was just open to the path. So pick where you want to go and then just be open to how you get there.
Yes, I was going to say, Julian, thank you for your question. I think my advice to you, being especially like a young Black man navigating through college, is to find like a mentor you can look up to, because I did when I was in undergrad. I had a mentor that helped navigate me to kind of strengthen my skill set and figure out where I wanted to be, and how I could take advantage of opportunities, not only from a professional standpoint, but just as far as like finding out what you're passionate about and finding out like what's important to you and how you want to spend your next few years. So I think like coming from a background where like I love media, I knew I wanted to work in media, but I was also passionate about like other things such as like traveling. I realized I could do everything. Like you don't have to be one thing. Yeah, you don't. I've realized that over time. You don't have to be one thing. You have the right to have multiple passions, and you can follow all your dreams.
I would say build your community. Like find people that you can build connections with laterally as well as, you know, wherever you can find them. And work on building like actual friendships with people, not just like figuring out who's useful, because that's one way to do it, but the enduring relationships that will ultimately introduce you to other people or connect you to other things are people that you care about and that care about you. So that's been the most beneficial thing for me over the years, is the more like-minded people that I have in my network that can actually understand what I'm going through, but then also provide the opportunities of extending that community. They stick around because they want to, not because, you know, you're useful to them and they're useful to you. Yep.
Thank you so much. We have... No? Okay. That's a wrap. Perfect.
Smooth.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for being on stage, sharing all the wonderful insights. I feel so inspired. Are you guys feeling inspired as well? Perfect. Let's give it up to Jess, Demetrius, and Tyranny.
Thank you.